You are not here by chance. If this video has shown up for you now, it's because your soul is starting to remember, even if your mind still thinks it's just a coincidence. Before you were born, something was written, a plan, a vibrational code, a contract. And Thoth's most dangerous secret is exactly this. There is a hidden, yet extremely precise, reason for you to be living this exact life. Every challenge, every pain, every person was placed as part of this sacred agreement your soul made before coming down to earth. But when you were born, everything was erased. The forgetting wasn't a mistake. It was a spiritual architecture that Thoth recorded to ensure that only those who were ready, only those who awakened from within, could access what comes next. And now, it's your turn. What you're going to discover here isn't philosophy, nor just some pretty internet theory. It's the real vibrational map that can help you remember why your soul chose this life. But pay attention. This map isn't given all at once. It shows up in parts. And the first part is starting now. You'll see the signs. You'll recognize the patterns. You'll understand why everything seemed stuck. And most importantly, you'll start to feel that what you used to call a problem was actually the entry point to your purpose. But only those who stay until the end can see the complete code. So, take a breath and come with me. Because what comes next is the first real fragment of your soul contract, and it's going to change everything. The soul knows the path that the eyes forget. Only when the heart is silent does the pact of origin begin to be remembered. Maybe you think you're just living your life normally. You wake up, handle your commitments, think about your problems, distract yourself when you can, and try to sleep in peace. But behind that routine, something bigger is trying to wake you up. And it's happening now, even if you're not paying attention. There are days when you feel a tightness for no reason, a knot in your chest, a discomfort that shows up out of nowhere, like something's wrong, but you don't know what. And then you try to rationalize, distract yourself, change the subject, but the feeling is still there. That's not just anxiety. It's not just emotion. It's a sign. There are hidden codes working around you all the time, and they're not messages made of words. They're vibrations, subtle impressions that break through logic and speak directly to what's deepest inside you. What Thoth called the voice of the soul. And this voice doesn't speak the way your mind does. It uses invisible shortcuts to reach you. And maybe the most common one is repetition. Because when you start seeing the same numbers all the time, hearing the same topics in different places, coming across the same words in books, songs, and random conversations, that's not random. It's the language of remembrance being activated. It's like the universe is shining a light on the points of the map your soul drew, as if it's saying, "Look here, pay attention to this. This is the part of the path you need to see right now." There are people who live through these signs for years and never notice, because logic blocks it, the rush blinds, and autopilot makes everything seem like just coincidence. But here's the point. Coincidence doesn't exist on this plane. Everything that repeats is calling you. Everything that insists has a deeper reason. And if you stop to notice, you'll remember moments like these, days when you thought of someone and that person showed up, or you dreamed of a strange image and later saw something similar happen, or you felt like you shouldn't go somewhere, and suddenly everything went wrong when you insisted on going. That's not superstition. It's vibration. It's the field of the soul contract moving. It's the wisdom that was stored inside you before the forgetting, trying to surface. And when you start noticing these repetitions, you realize that you were never alone, that something greater has always guided you, even when you thought you were lost. even when everything seemed meaningless. But that's not all. Sometimes the sign comes as such an intense déjà vu that it throws you off balance. You walk into a place for the first time and feel like you've been there before. You look into someone's eyes and feel a familiarity that's impossible to explain. That's not ordinary memory. That's the soul recognizing parts of what it has already lived on another plane, in another life, or at the moment it chose this path. These activations don't follow linear logic. They're sensory, energetic, and they appear when your vibration gets close to the right moment, because there is an exact time for each memory to resurface. A cycle of spiritual maturation. And if you're here now listening to this, it's because your time has come. And right at this moment, your soul is sending even clearer signs. Signs that come through recurring dreams, intense emotions, repeated vibrational patterns. But there's a specific kind of code that starts to show up when remembrance is getting closer. When everything goes wrong, it's because something is aligning. This kind of code doesn't come lightly. It shows up as a push, an unexpected collapse, a door closing right in front of you when everything seemed to be falling into place. And that's when most people panic, because everything they understood as a sign of progress disappears. But what's really happening behind this apparent chaos is a deep, silent, and precise realignment. Your soul has a kind of intelligence that doesn't operate within the logic of the world. It doesn't measure success by immediate results. It measures by vibrational alignment. And when you start to drift away from the path it mapped out before incarnation, it responds, not with punishment, but with redirection. That's why sometimes the more you insist on something, the more it feels like the universe is against you. Things don't flow, projects get stuck, people pull away, opportunities vanish. But that doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're being pulled back to your center. Only this pull is rarely subtle, because when the soul needs to bring you back to the original path, it will use whatever is necessary. And this is the point where many give up. They think they wasted time, that they're being punished, that life is unfair. But what's actually happening is the activation of an inner portal, a breaking point where the old starts to crumble so the new can emerge. And if you resist, you suffer. But if you understand, you pass through. When everything goes wrong at the same time, when it feels like nothing is under your control anymore, that's a code. It's a strategic move from your higher consciousness saying, enough. This cycle has given you all it could. Now it's time to move to the next level. But this kind of change doesn't come from external motivation. It starts inside. It starts when you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start realizing that it's not breaking you, it's repositioning you. And the more you try to force the old path, the more it disintegrates. Because that path no longer supports the vibration of who you're becoming. The soul starts generating systemic blocks, relationships falling apart, jobs that lose meaning, situations that once seemed stable but now collapse without warning. All of this is your own consciousness trying to push you to the point where things start making sense again. But that point isn't in the external world, it's in your inner field. This inner field starts to reveal patterns, and you feel it because the repetitions don't stop. They come back with different faces, new voices, but the feeling is the same. It's like life keeps putting you in the same position, the same types of situations, even if everything around you changes. And that's not carelessness of fate. It's spiritual engineering. These patterns are vibrational imprints left by old choices. Fragments of consciousness. Your soul strategically scattered along your path, like clues, like invisible markers. And when they reappear, they're not there to punish you. They're trying to teach you, to show you something you haven't wanted to face. Maybe you always get involved with people who make you feel invisible, or you always end up carrying all the weight in relationships. Maybe you find yourself again and again being rejected when you show who you really are. Or maybe you're always stuck in the same scarcity, no matter how much you try to change. These scenarios aren't repeating because the universe is cruel. They're happening because there's an unresolved code there, a lesson you promised to master. And until you access the vibrational content behind the repetition, it continues. As if your soul is saying, "Not yet, not awakened yet." And here's a detail that almost no one notices. The pattern isn't in the other person. It's in your vibration. It doesn't matter who shows up. The type of frequency you maintain attracts exactly the piece that triggers that learning. And that doesn't mean blame. It means awareness. Because if it's in you, it's in your power to transform. Thoth taught that recognizing the pattern is the first step to breaking the cycle. You don't have to understand everything. Just notice, name it, feel it. Because the moment you identify that it's happened before, and that it follows the same energetic script, something inside you reorganizes. The repetition loses strength. The contract starts to be remembered. It's like each pattern is a point on the map. And when you start connecting these points, a bigger picture emerges. A picture that reveals the purpose hidden behind the pain, the function behind the repetition, the key that was buried within your own story. And there are patterns that run deeper, more intense, that show up early in life and shape the way you see yourself. And when these patterns are activated, they take you straight to the most hidden fragment of your original contract. Your family was chosen by you for a reason that will change the way you see everything. And this hidden fragment, most of the time, reveals itself in a place many people try to ignore, within their own family. Not the idealized family, but the real one. The one that challenged you, that shaped you, that tested you. The one that brought the first clashes and also the first triggers. Because right there, in that seemingly ordinary setup, was the beginning of the activation of your contract. You might think you ended up in this family by chance, that you were born where you were because of a sequence of coincidences or genetics. But no, the choice was yours. And it was made with full awareness, even if that's hard to believe today. You chose where to incarnate, with whom to incarnate, and what you were going to experience there. And it wasn't so you'd be loved all the time. It was to remember who you really are. Family is the first arena. It's the most intense training ground, and it's where the first roles are activated. Roles that seem spontaneous but were already mapped out. The overly responsible one, the invisible one, the one who carries everything on their shoulders, the one who feels out of place, the one who needs to save everyone, the one who can't seem to fit in. These aren't random behaviors. They're spiritual functions. Functions chosen to train a very specific skill in your soul. And when you start to understand this, something changes. Resentment turns into revelation. Pain gains meaning. And the family pattern stops being a burden and becomes a portal. Maybe you spent your childhood trying to please someone who never really saw you. Maybe you grew up trying not to cause trouble, being the peacemaker in conflicts that weren't even yours. Or maybe it was the opposite, always in opposition, always questioning everything, always seen as the problem. But none of these positions were in vain. They were vibrational mirrors. Your soul knew it needed to train compassion, firmness, courage, resilience, detachment. And the best place for that was within a scenario where everything seemed challenging from the start. Because challenge produces expansion, and family, even within its limits, is a precise spiritual technology for that. And here is the most delicate point. The soul doesn't judge what is easy or hard the same way the mind does. Sometimes the deepest pain carries the highest teaching. That absence that marked you. The lack of affection that shaped your sensitivity. the abandonment that forced your independence, the comparisons that pushed you inward. All of that is part of a more subtle mechanism, one you helped design. And even the conflicts that still persist today, the unresolved silences, the distances, the roles that still weigh heavy, all of that is trying to show you that your mission started there, not as punishment, but as activation. A vibrational code that made you develop gifts, intuitions, perceptions that you would never have accessed otherwise, because your role in that family was a subtle rehearsal for what you came to do in the world. And when you start to see that your mission began in the closest environment, you also start to feel that there's something even deeper wanting to emerge. It's like an ancient memory is trying to surface, not through logic, but through vibration. A silent calling that says, it's time to remember what was agreed upon before it all began. This calling isn't external. It doesn't come from anyone. It doesn't come from a master, a book, a guru. It's already inside you. And what blocks this access isn't lack of knowledge, but too much noise. A mind that won't stop. Scattered attention. A life swallowed by distractions. That's why the first step to remember is to go deeper. There is an ancient technique that initiates used in silence, away from the world's eyes. It was passed down by word of mouth between occult schools and circles of Hermetic wisdom. A technique simple in form, but powerful in effect. And it starts with an image. A staircase made of golden light. This staircase isn't in any physical place. It exists within your perception. A living symbol, capable of guiding your consciousness beyond the rational mind. And each step represents a layer you need to pass through to reach where the contract still pulses, intact. This staircase is more than visualization. It's alignment. When you start to descend it, something in your body responds. The tension dissolves. The rush slows down. And you feel like you're getting closer to something you already knew, but had forgotten. But pay attention. It's not about forcing images. It's about allowing this field to reveal itself. Because your field already knows the way. It just needs silence and intention. And that's why many people access this point without knowing the name of the technique, without understanding the symbolism. Because the soul doesn't depend on names, it responds to vibration. And maybe this is already happening to you, in your most vivid dreams, in that feeling of being in another place, even while awake. In the moments when everything gets quiet, and it feels like something is watching you from within. That's not fantasy. It's memory trying to move. And when you learn to follow this inner path with more clarity, what happens is something impossible to explain in words, because you don't just remember, you feel it. It's like reconnecting with a part of yourself that had been asleep in time. And when you touch that point, part of your contract starts to reveal itself clearly. When your energy matches your mission, everything starts to flow. Maybe you've never stopped to really notice, but there are things you've always done with a strange kind of ease. While other people need effort, study, practice, you just do it. Like you've done it 1,000 times before, and you have. These skills aren't accidental. They're living records of past lives, accumulated experiences, fragments of your eternal being that crossed time and were reborn with you. And they don't come alone. They come loaded with purpose. Each one of them is a key, a direct access to the most intimate part of your soul contract. And the most impressive thing is that they show up early. When you were still a child, still free from the pressures of the world, you already knew what made you feel alive. You played at organizing, healing, explaining, transforming, creating. You connected with certain activities effortlessly, with an almost sacred dedication. That wasn't just childhood. It was memory vibrating in the present. But as we grow up, we learn to hide those talents. We were taught that some things have no value, that you can't make a living doing what you love, that real skills are the ones that bring money, diplomas, status. And so, we turned off those antennas, one by one, until we forgot. But the body remembers, the energy field remembers. And that's why, even after so many years, those skills are still there, ready to be reactivated. And you know exactly which ones they are, because they're the ones that feed you when you practice them. They don't drain you, they nourish you, they give you energy back, because they are aligned with who you really are. When you ignore them, something inside you starts to get sick, physically, emotionally, spiritually. But when you honor them, when you allow them to take up space, your frequency rises. Your life starts to breathe again. The flow returns, and everything starts to fall into place in a way that feels almost magical. But that feeling isn't magic. It's vibrational coherence. Because when your energy matches your mission, the struggle disappears. Not because life becomes easy, but because you stop fighting against it. You align. And alignment is the greatest driving force in the universe. The difference is immediate. You start to feel lighter even in challenging situations. Synchronicities increase. The right people show up at the exact time. Paths that seemed blocked open up naturally. It's not a miracle. It's your soul rewarding you for coming back to your center. And that center is simple. It doesn't require perfection or performance. It only requires truth. And that truth lives in what you do spontaneously. In what flows when you forget the clock, when the world disappears, when time stops. That zone is the exact access point to your original contract. So if you want to know what your path is, look at what you do effortlessly, what energizes you. What you'd do even if no one was watching, even if no one paid you for it. The answer is there. And when you start to use that gift consciously, the mission starts to use you too. Life takes on a different rhythm. You leave scarcity behind and enter abundance. Not because everything outside changed, but because something essential finally aligned within. The Akashic records are real, and you're already accessing them without knowing it. And when that alignment happens, something even deeper starts to emerge. You begin to realize that certain intuitions that come out of nowhere aren't just guesses. That intense déjà vu, that feeling of having lived something that's happening now, that certainty that rises in the middle of silence, all of that is more than a feeling. It's information. Information coming from a place your mind may not understand yet, but your soul knows well. The Akasha. The ancients called this field of records the memory of the universe. And it's not a metaphor. It's real. There exists, vibrating at a subtle frequency, a space of consciousness where everything your soul has ever lived, everything it's ever chosen, everything it's ever planned is stored. Every life, every experience, every lesson, and that includes the contract it mapped out before being born here, now, in this body, on this mission. What you might not know is that this access doesn't depend on secret initiations or spiritual credentials. You don't need to be a medium or have mystical visions to touch it. In fact, you already do, every day, and maybe you haven't even noticed. You know when you meet someone for the first time and feel like you've known them forever. When you look at a new place and feel an inexplicable nostalgia. When you feel like you need to make a decision but don't know why. You just feel it's right. These are fragments of the Akasha crossing the veil. Small, non-rational accesses to a living library where your soul's truth is already written. And that truth doesn't show up as a complete story, but as frequency. The Akasha speaks to you through vibration. It shows what needs to be seen at the right time, in a way you can absorb. sometimes as an image, sometimes as an emotion, sometimes as a dream so symbolic it feels too strange to be just imagination. But it's not imagination, it's transmission. The Akashic field responds to your intention and readiness. That's why you only access what you're prepared to handle, what your soul believes you can understand without distortion. Because there's no point in seeing something grand if the mind is going to turn it into fear, control, or ego. True access begins in silence. In that state where you release the questions and allow the answer to come from the source. And when that happens, something lights up inside. It's not a mystical vision, but a recognition. You're not discovering, you're remembering. And that memory doesn't come from the outside. It comes from a point within you that has always been connected to this invisible library. A point that can't be accessed with haste or effort or doubt. But it opens when your vibration matches the frequency of truth. And when that frequency of truth starts to stabilize within you, a new layer of memory opens. It's no longer just inside you, it's in the encounters. In the faces that passed through your life, leaving marks so intense they still vibrate in your emotional memory. People who seemed to destroy you. People who healed you without knowing it. People who disappeared the moment your consciousness began to shift. None of this was by chance. You didn't come alone. Your contract is collective. Before coming down, your soul gathered with other souls on another plane, and silent pacts were made there. Spiritual agreements, pacts of support, rupture, challenge, and each of those encounters was programmed as an essential part of your expansion. It doesn't matter if it lasted years or seconds, whether it was love or conflict, whether it brought healing or pain. If it marked you, it was in the plan. Some people come into your life and you immediately feel like you've known them. Some bring such an unexplainable connection that it unsettles you. And then there are those who seem to be sent just to push all your buttons. But in each of these relationships, there is a function, a mutual exchange, a mirror, a teaching you and the other soul agreed to share. And here's the detail that changes everything. Sometimes, the soul that hurt you the most was the one that loved you the most on the original plane, because they committed to making you grow even if it cost affection, closeness, or acceptance. This is one of the hardest truths to accept, but also one of the most liberating. Not every villain in your story is a spiritual enemy. Many were volunteers, and in the same way, there are people who crossed your path just to remind you of who you were, who showed up when you were about to give up, who gave you a word, a chance, a presence, and changed everything. These souls are vibrational supports, activators, disguised mentors who come close when your frequency reaches the point to receive them. And the more you awaken, the more you start recognizing these invisible contracts. You start noticing patterns in relationships, situations that repeat with different people, dynamics that revolve around the same axis, connections too intense to be called luck, coincidence, or chance. This is not coincidence. This is the contract in action. And you don't need to mentally understand everything. You feel it. You feel it in your body. You feel it when someone's presence transforms you, when a meeting shakes your structure, when someone disappears and takes a piece of who you were with them, or when someone arrives and lights up a part of you that was asleep. It's in these moments that the contract updates. And sometimes, just by accepting this, you already unlock the memory that was stuck. Because the bond isn't in what the person did. It's in what you both vibrated together. It's in the silent exchange that activated layers of consciousness that couldn't be touched any other way. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you recognized this calling. And now, I want you to write in the comments the phrase, "I am ready to remember my soul contract." This is not just a phrase. It's an activation. Every time someone writes this, the vibration of the video grows stronger, and other souls are reached too. And if you feel this content touched something deep in you and want to help spread more messages like this around the world, there's a link below in the first pinned comment where you can directly support the channel. By doing that, you help keep this portal open for thousands of other souls who are also ready to remember who they really are. And pay attention. Before you leave, there's a special video waiting for you on the screen. It was chosen specifically to guide you to the next step of this journey. Click on it now so we can meet there, because awakening doesn't stop here.